Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. I wanted in this video to share my thoughts on the Lotus Emira. Now hopefully before the year's out I will actually get to drive an Emira, but I did want to share my thoughts before I drove one because there's quite a lot to talk about, and I've kept all my views on the car private until now for a number of reasons. And it has to be said that the public reception to the car has been overwhelmingly successful for Lotus. So I think that's terrific for them. It must have come as a huge relief to them to attract so many deposits for the car and to have such a long waiting list. So let me be clear straight away at the outset that I am very pleased for everyone who works very hard at Lotus, that the car is a success, that it's popular. So with that cleared up, perhaps I can go into some of the things I like about the Emira and some of the things I'm not so keen on. Well, the first thing I like a lot about the Emira is that it has been a resounding success so far. There are a lot of benefits to this for Lotus. It helps build their relationship with their parent company. It also supports the idea that there is demand and there is interest in performance cars, then sports cars, and I hope it will be the first of many great sports cars that continue to come out of Lotus and hopefully at Hathor in the UK. I'm still not quite sure how Lotus have managed to appeal to a wider market, but they appear to have done just that, which was probably the most important thing the Emira had to achieve, and they certainly seem to have got customers that perhaps have not considered a Lotus before to put a deposit on an Emira. So the car has achieved a great amount already. So I guess the bottom line is that most people who can afford a sports car want something that is fast, competitively priced, cool looking and comfortable. So the Emira delivers on that. So I get it, I get the business case, I get why the Emira is the way it is. I guess the bit I'm more surprised by is how many long-term Lotus fans and owners seem to want one. Because in most cases they have walked past other more comfortable, better equipped and arguably more reasonably priced cars in order to get into an Evora or Exige. So by all accounts the Emira is considered a very good looking car, and I think crucially and perhaps most impressively it's a distinctive looking car. It doesn't look like a clone of anything else. The only other car it is going to remind anyone of is the £2+ million Evija, a Lotus electric hypercar. So I think that's pretty good going for a £70,000 sports car. I think in something of a departure for Lotus, a lot more time and attention has gone into the interior design of the car, and I think most people would consider it a triumph in this area. I will admit that I like the car more having sat in it. This absolutely is a Lotus that you are supposed to put a lot of miles on and do long journeys in, and I think it's probably fair to say it will be the best Lotus GT car to date, at least since the Lotus Carlton of the early 90s. So again, the order book is full and any criticism of the Emira is pretty pointless really at this stage, but there are reasons, for me at least, why I have no interest in getting one at this time, and why for me it is a disappointment on a number of levels. Now I think it's fair to say that when the Evora came out I didn't want one of those either. For me the Exige was closer to the sort of Lotus that I was interested in. We are at the very early point in Emira's development, and I'm sure later cars will be of greater interest to me. I do also reluctantly subscribe to the view that the best weight for a Lotus, or the ideal weight for a Lotus, is that at which it sells, which was said by Autocar's Matt Pryor. It's a very fair point, it's irrefutable really, but it's still a bitter pill to swallow to see a company founded on and devoted to lightweight engineering, something they proved in motorsport at the very highest level, and it's something I still believe is as true and relevant today as it ever was. And yet the moment Lotus appear to have finally abandoned their founding ethos, seems to have been rewarded with great sales success. So I guess my main concern would be, why would they bother doing a lightweight version of the Emira? The other thing that they appear to have abandoned as a company, which is for me probably as big a loss as the disregard for curb weight, is for me the expectation that every new Lotus should be a showcase for innovation, original thinking, and a game changer in some regard. While the Emira is absolutely a game changer for Lotus, it is not a game changer for the industry as far as I can tell. It's not something that other car makers will be using as a reference, as has been the case with many Lotus cars in the past. Again then, hopefully the car will evolve into something more innovative with future models. Certainly there's massive potential with the 4-cylinder turbo AMG version of the Emira, although sadly for me this will undoubtedly mean no manual version, but the latest C63 AMG Mercedes is making around 480 horsepower just from the petrol engine alone. Now these are F40 numbers. I doubt Mercedes will ever let Lotus use that exact engine, at least for a long time, but it just shows the potential in that power unit. So clearly there's a lot more to come from the Emira, but what of the car they have presented to us at launch? Well, in many ways I consider it a step down as a pure driver's car compared to the Evora GT410 that came before it. Now, I'm pretty sure everyone was expecting the weight to have increased, as it tends to on most new cars, but one magazine weighed their Emira launch edition at 1486 kilograms. Now when you remember that the car's predecessor weighed in at 1325 kilograms wet, you have to say that's a pretty significant increase. You only have to look at the new BMW M cars to realise how little a high curb weight figure affects sales of performance cars. In fact, I think BMW is selling more M cars than ever before, and the new M2 has just been announced at around 1700 kilos, which is pretty obscene for an M2. Now, I have no interest in getting one of those either, but one thing BMW has done is hike the power accordingly, so even though they're heavier than ever, the cars are faster than ever. With the Emira, Lotus has done the opposite, and I know the whole car has been built to a price, and that's absolutely crucial to the car's success. But in theory, it offers no more straight line performance than the Evora 400 of 2015. Now, other than the wider track, I'm not aware of any other area in which the car's driving dynamics could said to have been improved. And of course, Lotus continued to develop and improve the Evora right up until it was unceremoniously dropped in 2021. And although the full list price was about £10,000 more than an Emira launch edition, the Evora GT410 Sport did have a higher top speed. It produced 96 kilos of downforce at top speed. This is the one without the wings. It revved higher at 7,000 RPM. It was lighter by at least 100 kilos and had 10 more horsepower. The Emira is quoted as having some, inverted commas, downforce. So in other words, they haven't even put a number on the amount of downforce it's supposed to create. I know downforce is not a big driver of sales, it's not a big issue for most road car buyers, understandably so, but all of this does suggest that the older, much older Evora was actually a lot more aerodynamically efficient in that it produced more downforce and had a higher top speed. I also don't think we'll ever see a Hethel lap time for the Emira as well, published from the factory. I'll leave you to draw your own conclusions about that one, but it's clear to me that there has been a big shift in focus away from the last word in driving dynamics to interior design, to practicality to daily usability to all that stuff, to cup holders and stuff like that, which is great for those that want to use their Emira every day or certainly more regularly. But Lotus replaced a range of 3 highly focused drivers' cars, 3 seminal driving experiences for 1 intentionally less focused, more rounded car. If they've got it right, there will be fewer compromises associated with owning an Emira. Now that tends to mean fewer irritations and fewer lows to the experience, but also less intense highs. So I fear that some of what made Lotus cars special will have been lost in the domestication process that led to the Emira. All will be revealed from behind the wheel on that one. I also suspect that the Emira will be a slower burn type of enjoyment as well. I think that a lot of the enjoyment of the Emira will come in the ownership of it, and that it's over the longer term that the steps forward that Lotus have taken with the car will become more apparent. So in terms of likes and dislikes, I will start with the likes. I like the styling, I like the interior design, I like the quality feel inside. I like the fact that you can still get a manual, very much so. I like that they have kept the Evora's hydraulic power steering, which remains the best power steering available. I like that it is bringing new car buyers to Lotus, and it's broadening the appeal of Lotus. That's ultimately good for all existing Lotus owners going forward. And I like that the new era of Lotus begins with a full order books for a sports car and not an SUV. I just think it's a really important statement for them to know that they can have success with sports cars, and that is extremely important for where they head next. As for dislikes, I'll have to start with the name. Not a big fan of the name, but I wasn't, and I'm still not really a massive fan of the name Evora either. I think there could have been better choices for both. And I'm not a fan of that square steering wheel either. I think that is a case of style over substance. The 6,800 RPM rev limit is a disappointment for me. I really think that 7,000 is a minimum for a sports car. Anything under that is just a bit pedestrian. I think there's evidence of sandbagging going on for future models. I think the first thing they'll do is up the rev limit back up to 7,000 where it was, and suddenly you'll find the missing 10 horsepower. Now, one thing I'm still mystified about, particularly on a so-called all-new sports car, is why there is such a prominent panel gap in the nose just under the badge. It's in a really obvious position, and it's exacerbated by the fact that it has a rubber seal. I've actually seen the cars in build up at the factory, and to make it more bizarre, that panel over the front, that front bonnet panel as it were, is actually hinged. Now, I don't believe customers can get access to whatever's underneath there, which is not much, but they've gone to the trouble of making that panel hinged, and so much so that they've had to put a rubber seal down there, which again on bright colours makes that panel gap really noticeable. It's completely inconsistent with the other panel gaps on the car, which are generally very good. And this screenshot from the Lotus Cars website is a pretty clear indication of how they think the car should look. But unless they've improved it dramatically for production cars, this is what you'll get. But of course the easiest fix for anyone this bothers is just to go for the darkest colour, which would be my personal choice. Another thing I'm baffled by with the Emira is why there isn't at least an option for a lightweight manually adjustable seat. As far as I know, you can only choose between a 4-way adjustable electric seat and a 12-way adjustable electric seat. Now that might not be such a big deal in a BMW, a Jag or an Audi, but in a Lotus it just seems a bit of a shame. So I can only imagine that they didn't think it was worth the cost of offering a manual seat at this stage, but maybe it was deliberate. Maybe they wanted to make a statement that this was a different kind of Lotus. Maybe they wanted to get away from adding lightness altogether. Either way, I'm not very comfortable with the fact that electric seats are compulsory in an Emira. I wouldn't want electric seats on any sports car personally, but obviously it's a case of each to his own. So overall, I have pretty mixed feelings about the Emira. I'll be watching with great interest to see where the car goes from here. But the bottom line is, until Lotus can convince me that they have produced a finer driver's car than the Evora I currently own, I will continue to enjoy what I consider to be the best overall road legal Lotus to date.